Uh-oh.
Little did he know how true that uh-oh would prove to be.
Garth, that was a haiku.
Whoa, 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 whoa. This isn't the Wayne's World video. Cute. Ta-da. Ta-da! The subject of today's video is a late 20s Stromberg Voisinet, or Voisinet, not sure. It's American, so you lean towards more of a non-French pronunciation, generally. Venetian style KeyKord tenor guitar. It's all mahogany construction, and it's got this patented mechanism, talk about neck dive, to help you play and press chords. Nowadays, chord changers are fairly prevalent and they're very cheap. And they're very shit. But Stromberg Voisinet was likely to have been the first company to produce such a device. They were a company that lacked focus because they were constantly working on innovation. They came out with a patented neck joint. They were one of the first companies to come out with an electrified instrument. It was not successful. I think they were a little too soon to the game, and their pickup system was not great. Don't forget the arrow, uke. The company was in operation for only a short while in the 20s before it evolved into the company K. My first encounters with the company took the shape of their more common and cheaper parlor guitars with their patented tuning machine heads. They were recessed into the headstock, and so the back of the headstocks were often carved or stamped into a design. This guitar is beautiful, but it is also a novelty piece of... I know the seller bought this for $250 or less because I saw it on Marketplace in their hometown. I ended up with taxes and fees paying $588. A note to sellers: if someone contacts you and discreetly provides you with many alternative ways to contact them, you can save fees and they can save taxes if you contact them directly for the sale. And it plays like, sounds like, but I thought it would. Okay, that tuning seemed wrong, so I changed it to CGDA, and now... What a stupid piece of shit. Let's have a look inside. Okay, so the diagrams on these buttons don't look the same as what it's doing. See, this has these three and one. It's doing more of a D shape. So I tuned it to DGBE, like standard guitar tuning, the top four strings. Okay, it still sounds like ass, but I think the tuning is correct. Unmentioned crack, unmentioned crack.
This is doo-doo, baby.
But it does have that drip. So I looked up this patent number, and it led to a match and battery crate invented by somebody named Emil C. Crate. And it was a revolutionary technology that allowed you to carry matches and batteries in a single crate. But good news for you, this is now public domain, so you can now store your battery and matches in a crate together without being subject to patent litigation.
Dang.
So as you can see within the mechanism, there are stamped in frets. And when you press a button, it pushes down the string so that it will fret it. If the mechanism doesn't go far enough down, it's going to fret the note where the actual mechanism is touching it rather than the fret itself where it's meant to be fretted. And when it doesn't press it well enough, you end up with sounds like that. Well, some of the buttons will actuate one of the switches properly. Others will actuate the same switch and not go far enough down. So it's a matter of whether I can adjust it per key and yada yada. The arms that do press on them do have little adjusters. Most of them are maxed out, meaning the screws are pushed all the way in, but some are not. I guess the hardest part about this is that some of the keys actuate them properly and some do not. This may be partially related to the action height, which is quite high. It could also be that when you press a key that actuates multiple strings, because there's so much more tension for it to uphold, that creates more issue than the mechanism pulling the arm itself. And that's why I think the action height may be playing a part, because obviously the higher the action, the harder these need to push. And if they're pushing 4 strings at once, that's all the more effort. All right, now I just need to make a list of what keys are defective on which frets. And then once I open it up, I'll have that as a reference. It looks like that one's not pushing down far enough either. So as I mentioned, some of the keys work with certain buttons. Some of them don't work, but there are some problem areas that are repetitive. This one, here, and here. This one, we see 2 instances of. Anyway, it's all over the map. And now that that's done, we can take off the strings and look in the mechanism. There are some tough ones to get to in there. All right, I think that's all of them. Here it comes. Gosh darn. Look at that. That's crazy. These bolts on the side are what keep these pulleys in alignment. Tone ball. Here's a better look at the route. Well, it turns out, yes, without the string tension, they all move much smoother and go much lower. But, ooh, 11 sticky. All right, I went through all the ones that were having problems and I tightened them down. I pretty much just maxed out the adjustment screws. One was already maxed out, so I might have to shim that one, either under the screw or just pad the end of the, what do you call them, fingers? I don't know whether to add lubricant or not. It seems like the only movement issue it has is that sticky 11th key, and I think I'll need to find a spring to add. This might work. No, this one's too stiff.
That's what she said.
It seems like everything about this was made with really tight tolerances, so this spring might not even fit in the cavity. First I tried hooking just a few loops onto that, and it was too stiff. I think it needs more spring to spread the force out over. This one is still quite difficult to press, and I've got it hooked on there, but it also interferes with the other key. I found a different spring with better resistance, but it's even bigger. You know what might work is a child's hair elastic. Can't leave the tone ball in this one. Well, the verdict is in on my adjustments after tightening the screws. It is as bad or worse. So, that sucks. Now I'm going to see if adding just a little bit more to these guys, just a rubber band's worth of thickness, will help. So at this point it seems like I can either add more to the feet that press the strings down or increase the size of the frets. Seems like I've got more room for tolerance on the bottoms of the feet than I do between the string and the fret. So my thought now, of course, is to raise the fret markers either by capping them with something else or by supplanting them with a different fret in a slightly different location, which I can rectify by moving the floating bridge. Also, I'm gonna make a new floating bridge for it. Having said that, maybe I'll just lower the original because no point in having it non-original. I don't think a neck reset is something necessary. Hashtag subtle foreshadowing on a device such as this. Yeah, I think this Wenge bridge I made for this Regal is a better height, and it's only a few millimeters shorter. All right, smelling like African blackwood. I figured it would be dyed, but it's legit. The string guides are excessively tall and damaged, so I'm gonna bring those down too. New height, same great look. Now, someone in the comment section recommended I try nylon strings, and that makes a lot of sense because their wider diameter will mean they'll be more susceptible to the pressing of the buttons and the contact with the frets. So let's do that. Immediate pitfall, these strings are not straight and they have to be threaded through this. Haha. Y'all ever been editing a video and you see a coffee cup in the shot and you're like, maybe I should have another cup of coffee? Y'all ever been re-editing a video and you see yourself mention coffee because of a coffee in the shot and then you want to make yourself another cup of coffee? Well, that just happened to me. Back to it. After arbitrarily picking some string gauges that don't really work, I found a tuning that holds okay, but it's not in my range, and it doesn't sound great. So I think we'll have to go back to the plan of actually fixing it for steel strings. For posterity, we're gonna do a little sample of the nylon strings. It's not working any better than steel was, as far as I can tell, and it's not in a range I can actually sing in, but here we go. Okay, I've discovered something. With the string tension off, you can assess where each key is coming down more than others. And sometimes you press a button and one of the keys will bottom out on the fretboard where the others are still slightly above. So I'm going to attempt to even that all out and have them push down the same amount. So previously on this key, the closest note was hitting the bottom first. So I adjusted it so now they all three bottom out at the same time. The difference required is so minimal on these frets. What's that? What's that marking? V. Our toothpick's gonna be my new frets. As mentioned, the tolerances are really low, but I got the toothpick in there. Those are the three notes on the toothpick. Here's no notes keyed. It's a little too high. It's still coming down to raising the frets or adding pads to each of the keys. By keys, I mean these little guys. Can I fold up aluminum foil and have it pressed into place and stay there to the thickness I need? Okay, now I have these loosely wrapped in foil that's folded 4 times. Without foil. We're onto something. I also wedged some folded up foil between the screw and the base, and it helped a little bit, but it still plays like crap. So I guess I'll just take a walk and think on it. Well, this is frustrating. It seems to be different every time I adjust it, but not better. One last option just occurred to me. Heat shrink. Heat shrink tubing might do the trick if I can find it. Just like that, it's perfectly fixed.
Isn't it great that we're all better people?
It's not the Wayne's World video. We're gonna try the heat shrink, but first we are going to determine which ones of the feet is problematic by going through all the chords again. All right, so it's just 6 out of 12. What's 6 out of 12? I wish I had a heat gun. Well, this is easily the best engineered automatic chording device that's ever existed. It sucks all the same. Also feels like it's just 3 chords repeated. Now, I'm not saying I give up, but I give up. I knew when it took me weeks to convince myself to buy this, A, that the price was too high, and B, I knew that it was a novelty item and that it was going to be a lot more trouble than it's worth. And here I am, hoist by my own petard. At least now I'll have it apart again for a thumbnail. This novelty is cool and everything, but if an instrument's not playable, it's not an instrument. Now the bridge location puts this at a 21-inch scale, but that puts the 12th fret right here, which is annoying, but it's either that or we move the fretboard back towards the headstock a little bit. It's interesting that there is no finish where the bridge would be, almost as though it had a glued-on bridge. Because there's the extra lines here that look like possibly glue, I'm going to clean them off and see if I can minimize my necessary footprint. Looking good. Now I have to decide whether to remove this fretboard or just stack the new one on top. And either way, we are going to add a piece of wood in here, but we're going to make it removable, because I want the future owner to be able to switch it back if they so choose. I wish this had the Kermeyer patented neck. A bolt-on neck would make this whole job a lot easier. Hold up, you seeing this? A little bit of a ski jump there. I think that decides for us that we are going to pull this off and make a new fretboard all the way down, because otherwise we'll have to level this one and that will ruin it. Because, like, what is this bullshit over here anyway? We have to be careful and keep an eye on this because celluloid on the edges is flammable. Most of the way done now, but now you see there's this crack from the screw, so I'm gonna have to come around this way first. There is a hairline there as well, but I'm gonna try and sneak around and keep this all in one piece. Sorry, I know the lighting is mediocre, but just making the most of the day. The kid's on a play date. All right. Nice and clean. It's a well-fit dovetail. Now, as for this back crack, it's just slightly higher on this side, so we're going to put the tiniest bit of tension here and fill it with glue. Oops. I glued up all the hairlines in the old fretboard as well. All right, I need to pick out a fretboard material. Just sitting here in the living room is this nice piece of rosewood. It's figured, flamed, but it would be easier to do fancy inlays if I use ebony. I'm also curious if I can just take the end of an already slotted fretboard and chop off the first several frets to get the right scale length. So I'll check out, see if I've got anything that will work for that. My workshop is relatively clean at the moment, and I can't find any of the 24 rulers and measuring tapes I have. Now, if I cut this fretboard off at the second fret, then we've got 3, 5, 7, 10, which is perfect for a banjo or tenor guitar. However, it puts the 12th fret here, which is too far, which means you gotta push the bridge back, which means the bridge outline is exposed, and that's a no-go. However, if we move it to the 3rd fret, the alignment is pretty perfect, but these markers make no sense. I have this 24-inch scale Indian rosewood fretboard that actually lines up really well if you chop it off at the 3rd fret and leave a gap for the nut. And as much as I'd love to show you the process of making a fretboard, I'm sure I will do it in the future. I've probably done it in the past on the channel, but this is too easy. I'm just going to use this Indian rosewood. Bonus points, this has 0 taper, meaning it's a rectangle. So I don't have to meticulously cut a taper into the fretboard. Buggy tucked in the chair. I cut it a hair wider than the neck. A, to allow for room for error, and B, because it needs to have a radius like the neck profile does, instead of just coming straight up out of a radius into a straight angle. I will sand in a little more curve there. Preview. I could bind it or I could not bind it. Undecided. Too much? Kind of liking these micro dots. Maybe a little accent on the 12th. Now for this first dot inlay, because the tolerances are so tight between the dot and the hole, I wanted to ensure there was glue in the hole, so I put it in first. This turned out to be a mistake. So for the rest of them, I put them 1/3 of the way in, wicked in the glue, and then pressed them in the rest of the way. Mock-up. It's looking pretty cute. It's classy. You know, normally when you have the neck joint open like this, it's a pretty easy removal, but there's glue along the cheeks. And as I mentioned earlier, the dovetail is super tight, which is pretty unusual actually. I'm only getting a small amount of movement here. Generally, the original wood won't have such a nice fit. Of course, the heat and the moisture is meant to melt the glue, but it doesn't help that it swells the wood when there's such a tight fit already. So a lot of the reason this neck reset is so annoying is that that is some kind of glue that somebody put in afterwards, I assume. It doesn't seem like hide glue. So I cleared a bunch of the glue out to hopefully give me some literal wiggle room. So because the dovetail was so tight, I've actually resorted to drilling holes on either side of the dovetail on the sides. This will also hopefully heat up the glue that's on the cheeks. It's now midnight, the neck is still on, and I'm seeing nothing but risk of damage. And it's time to quit, for now. Another day. The neck removal process is damaging the sides near the dovetail and possibly even pulling the neck block up. So I'm going to build a neck removal jig today. I've been meaning to forever. But let's start the day out right before we get to the misery. Check this shit out. Fucking Blockbuster. Let's see what's inside. Nada. I've also broken 2 of my heat stick ends. Luckily, this set came with extras. Because the neck wood seems to be spongy and taking in the water and swelling even more, I'm gonna try a dry heat like Arizona this time. This is the hardest neck removal I've ever had to do, and I have full access to the dovetail, which generally makes it foolproof. I have this one jig, and I was pushing on the heel, and it's pushing up the soundboard by the dovetail again. This just keeps getting more nightmarish. There's a hairline crack in the heel. This guitar is the nightmare I assumed it would be. What's happening is the neck block is wanting to move with the dovetail, and I'm not having any luck separating the two from one another. Well, every other part of the guitar separates from the neck block no problem. I've never done this before. Meaning I've never had to shove a knife down the cheeks of a dovetail. Thank Look at this absolute show. Like, what is this stuff? Is this... It's like glue, but special. See this shit? Like, what the fuck? Essentially, it seems like they mixed the glue with sawdust and made it 10 times stronger. I did lose a little piece of the heel there, but something about this glue situation. Look at this absolute catastrophe. I guess I needed to go deeper with those, but shit. So now I have to rebuild all these joints, rebuild the dovetail. Well, holy f***. At least now I have to wait for that glue to dry before I can do anything else, which means I can move to something different. Oh yeah, I've got this to do. All right, I hammered them all in, now they're clamped. Yet another thing I now have to wait on. Maybe I'll brush my hair. Not! Now that I have that fit, I can't help but wonder if a hollow neck would sound cool. The rosewood fretboard I'm making is thick enough that it's probably structurally sound once I get this flat. I don't know. On the neck fit, you can see there's a gap at the back and a gap at the front. And that is true at both sides, partially due to the side being slightly misshapen. So we need to remove material from the center of the heel cheeks. Now first you want to clear out the material from this cheek. PSA sandpaper, keeping the backing on so it slides nice and smooth and doesn't tear. It's good to switch back and forth between sides because they are each relative to one another. Now, generally speaking, the object of a neck reset is to tip it further back to get better break angle because it is pulled forward over the years. In this case, we're just trying to get the neck to sit level on the body. And then we'll assess the angle. It'll probably be fine because there was so much material already missing from the back of the heel. You can see the fit is getting better, but we still have a little bit of a gap back here at the heel. And yeah, there's some deformation in the sides where it's not entirely flat plane, but we will just have to live with that probably. And as you pull through, the sides of the cheek will get wider. You can see where the sandpaper has hit it, and you can clear that out again with a chisel so that your pull through has more impact each time and you're not just flattening a large plane, you're flattening just the edge. Now I've marked off the bottom of the fretboard, the amount I need to take off, and I'm going to attempt to give it a radius to match the profile of the neck. Honing this fretboard in to match the width and profile of the neck is a difficult process, but I don't really have a choice. This is a maple neck that's stained to match the mahogany of the body. And so if you put the fretboard on and then match it up with sanding, then it will be apparently very bright white maple. All right, so I glued on the fretboard. Y'all know I don't love to, well, you probably don't, but if you've seen a shit ton of my videos, you know I don't like to videotape when I'm using hot hide glue because it's such a time-sensitive process that it just increases the stress. But I will show you when I glue the neck back on. That's a little bit more relaxed. Hey, Buggy. Buggy just caught a fly and ate it. There's the neck with the fretboard. I actually left out the walnut strips. No idea where they are. So if I wanted, I could put some sort of sound hole in the fretboard and see what kind of acoustic sounds it makes. A little bit of glue to clean up, but the seam is nice and tight. And perhaps with a coat of shellac, it will all become cohesive. Okay, now we've got a test fit, just holding it in place. And you can see there is a little bit of exposure here on this side, so we will need to remove a little bit more from this side of the cheek. Sorry, that wasn't held down right, but there's still a hair. So yeah, we need to remove a little bit more from this side to balance this out to cover the soundboard footprint. Now that the fit is tight and the neck is angled properly and has good projection, we can shim the dovetail so that it gets a tight fit. And while we do that, we'll heat up the hide glue. Now I had soaked a fresh batch of granular hide glue, but then when I opened up my glue pot, I found I already had one in here and it's not moldy. So we'll just use that one because usually I've heard that you're not supposed to use it after the first melt. You're supposed to melt it twice before it gets maximum strength. I don't know if that's true. And before that, we're going to dress the fret ends because they'll be a lot harder to dress once it's on the body. This is the Stumac Yamaha amp jig. Want to make sure you're doing it at an angle where light reflects off the facet that you're creating so that you can see the shape of the fret end clearly. Now this triangle file does have safety edges, meaning they've been filed down, but there will be some damage to the fretboard, but that's okay because we haven't softened this edge yet. It's very sharp and we're going to soften it with some high grit sandpaper. Now, to fit the dovetail, we are going to shim it with some thin veneer and then sand it back till it fits nice and snug. Our glue is a little too warm. We want it more at 140, so we're going to turn down our dimmer a little bit. And the glue is also looking pretty good, maybe a little more viscous than I would normally like, so I might add a little water. Genuinely added probably 3 drips of water, and now I'm going to add a little bit more water. That's still thicker than I'd like. Okay, these shims are now glued on, and we can see just how tight the fit will be. It probably won't go all the way in. Ooh, we're really close. That's nice. See, it's too tight to go in, but it's most of the way in, meaning we've got a tight fit and we won't have to remove too much material. This is where some chalk comes in handy. You can see where it's binding if you mark this up. Now, because it's a close fit, we're just gonna lightly sand the areas where it's touching and then try to fit it again. Slightly deeper with slightly less pressure, but we got another millimeter to push here before it seats all the way. I've said it before, but it bears repeating. You want the dovetail neck joint to be tight enough to hold the neck by itself. You don't want the glue to be doing any of the work other than just securing it. It should fit tightly and perfectly, and then you glue it. Additionally, of course, you want full contact all the way through, but where it's most important is at the back of the heel because the tension pulls this way, so you know what I'm saying. Again, not quite there. I'm in about my 4th round here of fitting. If you go too far, you have to re-shim, so you want to be careful. That sound is good. We still have a little bit, like 3/4 of a millimeter, slow and steady progress. But like I said, you don't want to overdo it. And essentially how I decide I'm done is that the neck will go on, but only when I add the pressure of a quick grip clamp. Super close, but not quite there. All right, this is definitely going to be my last round. I'm just going to scrape off the last little contact areas, and then we'll be ready for glue. All right, this is the moment. We're just going to put a little bit of glue on each of these cheeks, or whatever you want to call them. They're not the cheeks, the opposite of the cheeks. And that's it. A couple of pieces of glue there. Like I said, the glue doesn't do the work, it just holds it in place. Take a couple of clamps here. One on this side, one on this side. And pull it into the neck. And we're good. Now that that's out of the way, I'm going to slide a little glue into the overhang. I masked off the overhang. I'm going to drip some glue in. Clamp it up. All right, next up will be nut. Then I might have to make a new bridge because I lowered that last one. We'll see. And hopefully I don't have to do any fret work. Hopefully the frets are fine as it is because I did them perfectly. Okay, I took off one tuner because the tabs were bent. So I'm gonna straighten those, but also one of the ferrules or ferrules or bushings is incorrect. So I'm gonna see if I can find a correct replacement in my stash. I found one that's a good aesthetic match, but it is more than twice as deep. But if it fits, it fits. Doesn't fit. Now I definitely should have finished my nut situation before I glued it on, but I'm dumb. Quick test fit shows that, yes, I need to make a new bridge because I modified the old bridge. Can I make the nut just a piece of fret wire though? A nice tall piece of fret wire with thin slots might work. As I like, I found one that's already the right height and the right width, so I just need to chop down the length and shape it. But first, Buggy wants to go for a walk. Well, this video has been going on for too long. I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you're not too upset I didn't get the KeyKord working. And I hope you like the new version of this tenor guitar. As I finish up the nut and bridge, I will do the sound demo. Shout out to Patreon patrons. Thank you for your support. Shout out to channel members. Thank you for your support. Thank you for everyone who's purchased my album. And I'm working on a new record now, which is pretty exciting. It's been years in the coming, sitting on a lot of songs. I'm looking forward to getting them on tape. Well, you said you weren't wrong. You were right all along. In a world where nothing means anything at all. That's a place I call home. My mind starts to roam to a place where you had done wrong. Now here's a sample of what it sounds like through some condenser mics and an interface.